Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crespillo, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hello, everybody. It's Marguerite Crespillo, and guess what time it is? It's time for Real Estate Real World. And today I have a very special guest. This young lady I met probably 10 years ago, I guess. It's been almost 10 years ago when she came into my office, frustrated about her production and some other stuff going on in her life. I got to sit and talk with her for a few minutes and decided to have her join my team. She was on my team for many years, and then guess what? We decided to merge and become business partners. So today, I have a very special guest on my show today. Please welcome everybody, Mitzi de la Cruz.
Hello there.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. We feel so formal here since we're on a call. We're on Zoom calls and phone calls probably a few times a day every week. So it's fun to do something outside of our norm.
Absolutely.
So Mitzi, I'm always enamored by your story because you've been such an inspiration to me and so many. And so I would love for you to take a couple minutes and tell us a little bit about your background and your story and give us your quick insight into where you've come from and what's brought you here today.
Sure. So as I actually started my life, very humble beginnings. I was a foster child and had a couple siblings as well that were in the system, and lived that life up until I was 15 and pretty much was fed up, had enough, and went out on my own. And I've been on my own ever since. So I had a lot of just different limiting beliefs and things like that I had to overcome. I knew that I didn't want my life to look like it had looked, and I was ready to make some really big drastic changes, but really didn't understand early on how to accomplish that. Some of the first limiting beliefs that I had as a young woman were that success was meant for other people and that other people had families that gave them different opportunities that mine hadn't. And so at best, I would be someone's executive assistant one day, and at that time make $60,000 a year. And that sounded amazing to me and sounded like it could provide me with a lifestyle that would be a lot different than I grew up with. And that would be my glass ceiling, and that would be a good life. I learned early on that was not going to give me the life that I wanted to provide for my family, and that wasn't going to get me where I personally wanted to go. So I did a lot of things early on. I started school when I was 19, 20. I was pregnant with my first child. Actually, no, I was 19 when I had her. So I started school pregnant, ended school pregnant, and then went on to have a couple other kids and found myself as a single mother at age 27. And I had 4 children at the time and took my niece in as well. So it was just the 5 children, myself and God, and we were just making the most of what we had. And again, had a lot of different things that I needed to overcome. So I stumbled into real estate as a vessel to really change the game, so to speak, for my family, and just went all in, and I have never looked back. So that's my story.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's genuinely a great story because I remember the day that you came into my office and you were in a car. I think you've told the story where you were like on your last like dollar for gas or something like that, or trying to figure it out. And I think so many people can relate to some of those situations in so many ways, because sometimes from the outside looking in, it looks like you had this like amazing life and everybody did everything for you and you didn't have to work so hard. And they don't realize what it actually took to get to where you are now. And so now you're married to Xavier. He's awesome. You guys have combined, what, 9 children, I think?
Yeah, 9 children. And I actually have a stepson for my first marriage too. So 10
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah. So a boatload of kids. And I'm always inspired by how you keep it all together. And I know you don't always, but there's a lot that goes into raising kids and what you show them by example, right?
Absolutely. And I really take that very seriously. I am really intentional with the things that I feed my brain when I'm in the car. I want my children to hear me listen to Audible, listen to books on growth and personal development. I want them to see me always do what I say and say what I'm going to do and not stray from that. I want to display and demonstrate integrity to them at every turn. So different things like that. I'm just so grateful for not just the opportunity to have gone through this personal growth and development, but also to be modeling that for my children. So they have no idea what that looks like and what I've come from, but they can really relish in the here and now, and then their future is even going to be brighter than anything I could ever imagine.
Who is your favorite motivational speaker?
You,
This was a test question. I didn't give you this ahead of time.
you.
Thank you. Outside of me.
What's that?
I said outside of me.
Oh, I love to listen to Jim Rohn. I know that he's no longer alive, but I just think that he's phenomenal. I love reading books by Malcolm Gladwell, and I just love him to pieces. And I think that there's so many opportunities all around us to just feed our brains by really absorbing a lot of great content that people are constantly putting out. And so, really, I feel like I'm almost a chameleon because I'll get a little from here and a little from here and just implement what really resonates with me. And it just all helps me to grow and to be better.
I got to meet Malcolm Gladwell, I think I told you years ago, at a National Association of Realtors event. I want to say it was in San Francisco many years ago. And he's brilliant. He's actually an extraordinary speaker if you ever get a chance to hear him speak. And I love his podcast called Revisionist History. Do you listen to that one?
No, I've not heard of it.
I love that podcast. It's one of my favorites. It's not real estate related at all, but it's great.
Love that.
He talks a lot about history and he talks about his perspective on history and things like that. I love it. It's fantastic. So you now are currently with eXp Realty, correct?
Yes.
And you've been here with me 7 years. So I remember when I came to you because I had shut down my brokerage. And I remember you saying, wherever you go, I'm going. So you followed me into our independent brokerage for a short stint. And then when I joined eXp, I remember coming and saying, I can't believe we're doing it again. We're moving again. You're like, wherever you're going, I'm going. And so you've been here as long as I have. So tell me, other than me, what has kept you here and what is it that you love about eXp?
So I really think it's interesting when I reflect on my entire career, right? Because this November will make 10 years that I've been in the business, and really being able to see the first few years I was doing whatever I could do to build my business. Like you mentioned earlier, if I was in the grocery store and someone mentioned, oh, you're in real estate, if I could find a plot of land for this amount of money, I would buy it. I'd buy it right now, cash. I would literally get their information and stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning looking for expireds or for sell by owners or whatever I could do to find that hidden inventory. So I was hungry and I was doing whatever I could do to change my family's trajectory that there in that moment. And so that's really what the first few years of my business looked like. It was just going from not knowing where my gas money was going to come from to show houses to really wanting to change that to be able to provide a different life. And so I was able to do that within the first couple of years of real estate, which was fantastic. But what I learned is that I never saw my kids. I never saw my family. My husband and I were having a conversation one evening, and he was really vulnerable with me. And he said, Mitzi, I miss you. The kids miss you. And it really broke my heart, because at the time I was thinking, okay, I'm definitely trading time for money. But I also felt that nothing was going to change if I didn't keep working hard. It would be really easy to slip back into that where we were needing a lot of help and support outside of our family. So that was really tough for me. So I was on this perpetual hamster wheel that a lot of agents find themselves on. And I really had no idea how to get off of that. I just figured I'd probably be opening lock boxes until I was too old to open a lockbox.
Just stay older than 60 and you'll be okay.
And that's not necessarily what I wanted to do. But again, I just knew that before real estate, we struggled in ways that I never wanted to struggle again. So, in my mind, the only way was to continue to do what I was doing. So then here you come, what, year 3 of my business, and you had this business opportunity of EXP. And again, you're right. I really couldn't quantify what that was going to do for our lives. I just knew wherever you were going, that's where I was going, because I trusted you emphatically and still do. So that was, for me, it was a no brainer. It was, okay, this is what we're doing. Great. Okay, let me know what I got to do, what I got to sign or whatever. I'm coming. So, what I didn't know and what I didn't really understand at that time was that my life was about to change, because I went from this baseline of barely surviving to now I'm at a point where I can do better for my family. But now I'm actually going to take it to a whole nother level where I'm not an agent on this perpetual hamster, but now I'm an agent owner in EXP. Now I've got stocks and revenue share and different opportunities to now take the money that I was making in those arenas and then diversify my investment. So now we own several short-term rentals. Now I'm operating in 2 separate states, and actually was able to move my entire family to Tennessee, which was a dream of ours for many years, just last year. If I didn't have what EXP has provided for me these last almost 7 years, I wouldn't have been able to do that without EXP. So it's been such a godsend. I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am every day.
So, what was that like to pick up and leave from everything you knew and everyone you knew and move across the country? And has that impacted you? How's it impacted your business?
It was very hard. The decision was very hard. I'll never forget. We just made the move August of last year, and then here we are. We've just been here a little over a year now, because now we're in September. But I'll never forget Xavier sending me an email. I've been married to my husband now for 10 years, a little over 10 years. I don't think he's ever sent me an email. But I think that's what he needed to do to collect his thoughts. And he sent me an email and he said, "What are we doing? Is this the right thing? This is nuts." We already owned property in Tennessee, which we actually purchased one property in 2020 and another in 2021 because of the stocks and things that we have at EXP. So I knew we would have somewhere to land, which really helped us quite a bit to take away a lot of the anxiety around the move. But we were going from a state where Xavier was a superintendent in the solar field to a state where superintendents are not even needed, because solar is such a new industry in Tennessee that you've got a one-man crew, a two-man crew, that type of thing. There's no need for middle management. So that completely eliminated his income. It completely eliminated healthcare for our family. It has me in a position where I'm essentially starting over in real estate in a market where nobody knows me, coming from a market where everyone knew me. And I couldn't even go into the grocery store without running into 3 or 4 different people. So it was a huge leap of faith. But again, I knew that we were going to be okay because we had several different things to fall back on, such as the revenue share that we've been able to build over the last several years at EXP, and all the agents that I've shared the opportunity with. And in addition, being able to look at some different options with healthcare and things like that, that EXP offers. So it's been a move that I feel that because I've partnered with EXP, we could make the move. If I hadn't partnered with EXP, there's no way that this would be, we would have been able to make this a reality for our family at this juncture, not having employment for my husband and things like that on the other end.
So, as a real estate agent, separate from EXP, what has it been like to start from scratch, having a 10-year business and then basically starting all over again?
So I'm glad that you asked that because I was really doing a lot of reflecting on that recently. I think when I first got here, it took me a little bit to trust myself. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I actually had met with a broker when I first moved here who I think might have felt a little put off just in talking with him. He wanted me to move over to his brokerage, and I explained all the reasons I was happy where I'm at and I wasn't going anywhere. He had told me a few things like there's a lot of people that are going to be put off by the fact that you're from California and different things like that. So it took me a while to really put myself out there the way that I did back in California. And so I think it's really funny the way that I tiptoed into this market, which was very similar to what I did early on in my real estate career, because I came from not knowing anyone back then 10 years ago, because I was so shy and so withdrawn and things like that, coming from the way that I grew up and the limiting beliefs that I had. And it was the same situation. And so once I really looked at that and I thought, okay, I'm going to attract my tribe. I'm going to attract my people. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. And really felt comfortable getting uncomfortable and started really putting myself out there. I'm noticing that the way that I'm building looks very similar to the way that I built at the beginning of my career, with the exception of I'm not desperate. I don't have to stay up till 2 a.m. to look for expireds and for sell by owners and things like that, because I do have that comfort. So it's funny. I'm glad that I finally gotten to a point where I can trust myself, and I've really started to document. I've really been doing the documentation since I got here because I want to actually pay it forward to other agents that are looking to expand into new markets and make those moves as a roadmap of how to do that. And yeah, I'm really gaining a lot of traction here, and the whole process has been very exciting.
So, it's my understanding that one of your children is thinking about getting into this crazy real estate business. How did that come about?
My son Orion, he really is just a phenomenal young man. I just adore him to pieces. And he actually had no intention, no, real estate was not on his radar whatsoever, because he's seen me work my tail off since he was 7 years old. He's now so he's seen how hard that I've worked all these years. And but the way that he's motivated monetarily. So he's always worked. At 15 years old, he was working at a restaurant, even though he wasn't necessarily supposed to be, but he was working and has really done well for himself that way. Even on the drive from California out here to Tennessee, he was literally doing Zoom interviews on the drive looking for work. So it's just how he's wired. And he came to me several months ago and asked me what I earn. And I told him that ordinarily I wouldn't necessarily share, but I wanted him to look at his different options. And so once I told him what I was earning, his jaw hit the floor and he said, okay, I'm getting my real estate license and I want to start right away. So he's still got a year to go, but he's shadowing me and really doing great at helping me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Orion has a little bit of my personality in him. So, how has the adjustment been for the kids?
So it's funny. Lillian, our youngest, will be 7 in a couple days, if you can believe it. And she's easy peasy. She's gonna make friends no matter where she goes. She calls people her mini fans. She meets people. She's, oh, it's another mini fan.
Only started because of her gender reveal, which was like a celebrity event.
She actually has one of my old iPads, and she walks around the house with her iPad. And so she's got her own YouTube show, which informally, because we're not actually putting her on YouTube, but she makes videos all day long and talks to her audience as if there's actually people watching, so it's fun to watch. And the rest of the kids, they're all teenagers. It was a tough time to move them. My daughter Rosa is going to be 15 this month, and she's playing rugby and making friends and just little social butterflies, so the adjustment's been great. Orion, I told you about him. And James is 19. He's actually going to school to get a certificate for telecommunications. And that's been fantastic. Yeah. Tennessee's been, it's been a great segue for him into that adult realm, especially as he's on the spectrum. So it's been really good for him.
Yeah, that's another challenge that has been thrown into your bucket, right? Having a son with autism. And he's done very well, though. Like, I'm not sure. I think if you spent some time with him, you would figure it out. But right out of the gate, you wouldn't necessarily
Right.
know. You've put a lot of time and energy and resources into helping him have the best skill sets he can have.
Yeah. When he was diagnosed, it was the day before his third birthday. And I literally had my daughter Isla, who at the time was 5, he was about to be 3. And then I was pregnant with, or no, Orion was just a newborn baby. He wasn't even a year yet. And then I had Tia, my niece, off and on. And so it was a lot getting that diagnosis, but that's what I needed. I just needed to know what he needed. And then we went straight to work, and we went after all of the different resources that we could get through Alta Regional, and we're able to get in-home support services where they'd come in and do lessons with him and things like that. So within a short amount of time, he was conversational and he potty trained and things like that we were told he may never accomplish. So it's amazing to see what he's done with himself. So very proud of him.
So, what advice would you give to your younger you?
Oh my. I would say, first of all, that it's, I guess, the same advice that I give my teenage daughters, right? Because I feel like I'm always looking at me, at that time period of my life. And that is really, you don't know who you are yet, but you will. And so until you do, you need to just treat yourself like you are your own best friend, and know that you are extraordinary. You're way more able than you realize. And so just walk with your head held high and know that you are a queen, and you'll realize that one day and really be able to step into that.
So, second part to that question, what advice as a real estate agent would you give yourself starting out?
I would give myself this advice, as well as anyone who's listening who may be a newer agent. And that is that when you're all in and failure is not an option, you're going to succeed. You're going to make it. You need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where the growth happens. And realistically, there's this kind of parallel of personal growth that goes along with becoming a business owner, no matter what realm you're in. And so really grasping that, adopting that, and being able to look and see what your weaknesses are and acknowledge them, but know that those aren't going to stop you. And you don't have to be good at everything. What you need to do is be good at what you're good at, be great at what you're good at, and delegate what you're not great at. And you're going to succeed. There's no way you can't.
So, what are you doing in this current market to succeed or stay afloat, as they would say? Because we've had some challenges, right? And I'm sure you're feeling it as well in Tennessee. It's nationwide,
Yeah.
the impact we're having with restricted inventory and a number of other things. So, what is it that you're doing on a daily basis to keep your business afloat?
So, really, I think two things are really important to do. And that is, number one, to niche down. I've really been able to create a niche within Tennessee, a sub niche of my business, because I am still selling quite a bit in California. And that is, I've niched down to helping people who are looking to buy and sell STR, short term rental properties. Also, folks that are looking to make the move from California out to Tennessee. So that realistically, when I look at the business that I've done this past year and the clients I'm working with now, they're all from California, and they're all either buying or selling for their own personal homes, or they're looking at short-term rentals or looking to sell a short-term rental. So I really started to drill down on my messaging to be able to get in front of those folks. And the other thing that I've been really intentional about is building relationships here locally and really getting out and looking for opportunities to build relationships with things that resonate with me. Like I'm actually joining a board of directors right now for Nashville Angels, which is an organization that runs right alongside families that have foster children, so that we're actually helping the family holistically, from the parents to any natural siblings that the foster children have, or foster other children that actually belong to the foster parents, things like that. So we're wrapping around that family. That resonates with me because of background. So in that realm, it's just really allowing me to do what wakes me up, what really excites me. And it's really helping me to attract people that are like-minded.
So that is actually one thing I've admired a lot about you over the years is your amount of charity work you do and giving back to your community. I remember seeing you create on Christmas Day, you took all of your children and to the park to help them give food and socks and warm things to the homeless people. What inspired that idea? Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, actually, the reason that I did that was because it was actually, I want to say, my second year in real estate, and I was really struggling. I was starting to get a little traction, but really not a lot of traction. That year, I ended up getting a foreclosure notice on my house. And I'll never forget, I got a foreclosure notice December 3rd. And I'd already been flirting with this pre foreclosure for quite a long time. But when I got that notarized letter that I actually got a sign for from the mailman, and I called, I said, can I send you a partial payment? And they said, no. It was like $22,000 is what they needed from me in order to stop the foreclosure proceedings. And I knew I had equity. They knew I had equity. So it was really a mess. And I just remember driving down the street and my kids are in the car and there's Christmas music playing. And I just wanted to change it because I was so overwhelmed with the fact that, okay, here it's Christmas. I've got to provide Christmas for these children, and I got to figure out how we are not going to be homeless come January 3rd, because that's the amount of time I had, 1 month to bring my account current, or they were going to start foreclosure proceedings. And so I'll never forget that, wanting to change the Christmas music. And my kids had no idea. They're just sitting in the back seat, singing along, fa la la. And I thought, oh, wow, Mitzi, okay, you need to just stop, because what you're doing is you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're going to completely ruin Christmas for your children. And you're really wrapping up the value of the season with things for the kids that they're not even going to care about in a couple days. But instead of really looking at what is this season all about, this season is about love. It's about giving back. It's about taking care of other people. I went home and I put a post on our neighborhood Facebook group. And I said, okay, guys, it's a couple days till Christmas. And from what I can see, there's maybe 40, 50 homeless people in Lincoln, which is the town I lived in at the time. And I said, who can help me? If you all want to meet at the park on Christmas Day, bring a plate to share. Let's just love on the people in our community that are unhoused. And so the post just took off. It went nuts. And it just filled me right up. I just felt, wow, this is amazing. So many people had the same thought and idea, but they didn't know how to execute. When they saw that post, they all wanted to be involved. And so it was amazing. We met at the park Christmas morning. We had breakfast burritos. We had everything, all the fixins for Christmas dinner. We had socks and tents and all different kind of things. The creek had just come up and washed out the camp. So there were a lot of people that they didn't have shelter or anything like that. So they needed tents and tarps and all the things. So that became our family's Christmas tradition, and my kids were none the wiser. By the grace of God, I ended up selling a mansion, if you remember, and you actually ended up helping me close the gap for the remainder of what I needed, and we saved my house, and which was really a turning point for me. But what I didn't want to stop that tradition. It felt better and just really filled me up more than any amount of gifts or anything else that we could have done on Christmas. So we literally did that all the way through, even through COVID. We met secretly and did sandwiches and things like that. So it was a watered
I
down
remember.
version, but still wanted to give back.
Thank you. That's always been one of my favorite stories, and I love that story so much. As we wrap up today, one final question for you. What's your number one book? What's your favorite book?
Ooh, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, that is a great book. Stephen Covey.
Yes. Yeah.
What is your most valuable lesson out of that book?
Ooh. I love the portion where he talks about talking to your children, because that's always been the biggest thing for me. I really want to be effective in the way that I communicate with my children. And so when he talks about talking to your children and asking them questions and trying to dig and then them closing down, as opposed to really empowering them with the conversation, that's absolutely my favorite part of the book.
You've been a true example of that and have done an extraordinary job with your kids. So thank you so much for joining us today, Mitzi. It's an honor to be in business with you, and I loved having you as a guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again on Real Estate Real World. You can catch us on all your favorite podcast channels and sources. Be sure to share and follow and like us, and make sure to check us out on YouTube and all of your favorite places. Thanks again for joining us today, and go out and make it a great day.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, pop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there. Be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.